Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. This is the 9th episode of the story in which Naruto has gained knowledge of his heritage and of a bloodline thought extinct. He must now leave Konoha to master his new abilities and bring back the glory of the Uzumaki, and he will have the help of a 5th Kage of Kirigakure with a similar past. After watching, like, share and subscribe to the channel. Now let's begin. Uzumaki village gate. Naruto and Mei stood next to one another facing a large gathering of civilians and shinobi. It had been a few days since receiving the message to meet in Kumo and the two were ready to head out. Sad that their Uzumaki was leaving them so soon, the people came to the gate to wish Naruto a safe trip. The two waved at the people before them and watched as Ao came up to the two of them. The man had once again been left in charge while the two powerful shinobi left the village, and they had a few parting orders for him. Ao, I have a few messages that I wish sent out to some minor countries that might be willing to engage in trade with us. I also wish to have you go over and finalize my new ideas for our ranking system and do your best to speed up the construction of the academy facilities. Naruto listed off what he could think of in his head to the man, who dutifully nodded in acknowledgement. Understood, I'll get it done. Mei chose to merely wave goodbye to the people as she waited for Naruto to finish up. I'm sorry for leaving you all so soon, but I promise we will only be gone a few days. Ao is a very capable ninja that I have much confidence in, for it was he who was able to lead the loyalists through the rebellion. Now please keep us in your thoughts as we forge a better future for Uzumaki. The people cheered Naruto and Mei as they waved once again and walked through the gate and jumped off into the wilderness. Ao turned around and watched as the people dispersed. They were still getting used to living in the city. The civilian council had done well in assigning everyone jobs, and so far, except for the trade problem, the people were content. The one-eyed man headed back towards the shinobi district of town where a second building was being created. It was one that not even Naruto knew about. It was to be a surprise for when he came back. Ao went past the construction site and into his nearby apartment. It was where he had been assigned to live, and it was a quaint place. He moved over to his desk and unfurled the scroll Naruto had given a few days ago to review. It contained the new ranking system as well as new lesson plans for the shinobi under his command. Let's take a look at these ranks. Ao, these ranks will range from academy student to myself as the Uzumaki. I have left the general ranks of Jounin, Chunin, and Genin alone because of simplicity and effectiveness. The real changes come in the form of specialized divisions of Black Ops, or ANBU. As a fellow hunter ninja, I'm sure you can critique this better than anyone. Academy student Genin, Chunin, Jounin, ANBU Black Ops, ANBU Beast Tamers, ANBU Hunter Corps, ANBU General. The Yuzu Hurricane Uzumaki. I will discuss more of the new units, including the Yuzu Hurricanes, later upon my return. For now, please use the rest of the information provided to help you better understand the new ranks. Uniforms for ANBU can also be found below. They are prototypes, of course. Ao scratched his head and thought about the new ranks with bare confusion. He knew Naruto was a genius. Hell, the people chose him for Shodai Uzumaki, but to make such bold additions she must have had quite a plan. What the hell are these Yuzu Hurricanes? Ao just shrugged. Naruto would explain it to him when he came back. In the meantime, the temporary leader of Yuzu was just going to have to deal with a lot of paperwork until then. 000 Kumogakure Reikage Building. Naruto and Mei appeared in a yellow and red flash, courtesy of Naruto's Hiration. He looked to his left and saw that Mei was still with him, although she looked a bit queasy. Naruto smiled at his success. It was the first time he had brought anyone with him with his father's technique. Looks like we made it, he announced with much fervor. Mei looked at him and gave an uneasy smile. The ride wasn't very enjoyable. It may have only taken a few moments, but still it feels like morning sickness all over again, she thought with a grimace as she clutched her stomach. Yes, wonderful. Let's find this meeting room, shall we? Mei suggested before they began to walk towards the supposed meeting room. It was not long before they were stopped by Kumo ANBU. Halt! State your business, called out one of the elite Black Ops. His hand was already on his katana from his suspicion. Who are these people? The woman there looks like the Mizukage, but where are her robes and who is this man? I've never seen this village before, he thought as he analyzed the new arrivals. They were an unknown group that he had no intention of allowing any farther. My name is Naruto Uzumaki and this is my fiancée Mei Uzumaki. She was the Godame Mizukage and I am the Shodai Yuzukage. We are here for the 5 Alliance meeting to see if we may join it. The ANBU pair looked at one another with pure shock hidden behind their masks. The Yuzukage? I have never heard of this country. How am I to know you aren't lying? Asked the leader of the two. He was incredibly suspicious of Naruto. Mei sighed and stepped forward. She was getting tired of all the distractions. She wanted to get the meeting over with and head home. Her pregnancy was getting to the point where it wasn't a good idea to move around so much. This puny little man before her was blocking entrance to her fiancé and her Yuzukage and she would not allow that. Excuse me. As my fiancé said before, I am the previous Godame Mizukage of the village hidden in the mist. You will allow us through now or allow us to speak with your superiors. The ANBU somewhat relaxed their guard but were still confused. If what you say is true, Mizukage-sama, why do you call yourself the previous Mizukage and not the current? You are still in power, are you not? Mei sighed out loud and shook her head much to the surprise of the Kumo Shinobi. That is a very important piece of info we must pass on to your Raikage for this meeting. Now will you allow us through or not? The ANBU looked at one another and his partner gave a slight shake of the head. The man turned back to the two Uzumaki to relay the verdict. I'm sorry but he was interrupted when a loud voice boomed down the hallway they were standing in. Naruto and the others turned to see a few Kinkaku squad members coming towards them. Naruto. What's up? It's me, Tamura. The one in the lead spoke up, identifying himself as the Kinkaku captain Naruto had fought alongside many times. Naruto smiled at his arrival and hoped it would mean they could get some safe passage to the meeting hall. The ANBU nodded their heads in respect towards the hunters and waved their hand towards the couple. Sorry for the troublemakers here, sir, we were just attempting to remove them so Tamura scoffed at the man and pushed past him, his fellow hunters moving through to the Uzumaki as well. Tamura swung an arm around Naruto's shoulder and pointed at the teen, making it seem as if they had known each other forever. Are you guys crazy? This guy is the Yuzukage, right? And that is his fiancée Mei Uzumaki, the Godame Mizukage. Why the hell aren't you letting him through to the meeting? Are you trying to insult one of our allies? The ANBU gulped. They had not known that Yuzu was such a great ally to Kumo. No sir. Please forgive our rudeness. The ANBU scratched their heads embarrassingly and bowed in apology. Naruto mouthed his thanks to Tamura and walked past the guards with the Kinkaku as their new escorts. The 5 shinobi walked through the hallways in silence until they arrived at the doors being guarded by more ANBU. This is where we part ways, good luck in there, Naruto. Tamura patted him on the shoulder before he and his Kinkaku disappeared in a puff of smoke. Naruto and Mei looked at one another and smiled. They had confidence in one another. They pushed past the 2 guards and entered the room to find the other 4 Kage waiting impatiently for someone, the Mizukage. All turned to greet the new arrivals but were shocked to see Naruto in a Kage outfit and Mei standing next to him in strange clothing. Naruto stayed silent as he looked at the assembly with a veiled eye, his hat tipped down to hide his face but show his eyes so he could observe. Gaara and Temari were in the Suna seat, both looked quite surprised at his arrival. A and his attendant stood at the forefront of the table. She was calm while he was both shocked and annoyed. Tsunade and Kakashi had to look behind them to see Naruto but both were caught in surprise at his outfit. Anoki and his Jounin bodyguard looked at the two with appraising eyes, not revealing any surprise as they did not share a close bond as the other Kage had with the boy. Hello everyone, it's been a few weeks since we last saw each other. I hope you will forgive us barging in so suddenly like this, but we have much to discuss. Naruto announced to the group before him and moved over to take a seat near Gaara that was reserved for the Mizukage. Mei stood behind the chair like the rest of the bodyguards. He set his hat down on the table and loosened his robes somewhat to avoid overheating himself. Not that I'm unhappy to see you, Naruto, but what is the meaning of this? Asked the boy. He wanted to know why he had on that outfit. To explain why I am in this outfit, it would be best to tell you the worst of the news first. The bloodlines have been forced to flee from Kiri due to a coup. They succeeded in overthrowing Mei. Everyone turned their eyes to the woman in question and she nodded her head in acceptance of the true answer. Yes, that is correct. After returning from the summit, we found that over half of the shinobi population loyal to me had been killed and the rest were on the run from rebels. We were able to save the Uzumaki and other clans from execution and move them to our new home, Uzumaki. Naruto is the Shodai Uzukage and is welcomed by our people as such. The information was so much to take in for the four Kage and Mifune, even Gaara's eyes widened in amazement. Wow! Temari muttered, surprised by the turn of events. Inoki huffed and smirked, shaking his head slowly back and forth. Darn youngsters, always wanting to show up their elders. Why, if I may ask, is this Naruto boy the Uzukage when they have the Godai Mizukage as their potential leader? Mei once again stepped up to the plate and patted her stomach lightly to bring attention to it. Her smile radiated across the room. I am pregnant with Naruto's child and it would not be right for me to assume the position of the Uzukage by endangering the baby. Besides, after the Kiri debacle I no longer wish to be a Kage. Naruto-kun has so much potential as a leader that I thought it best for him to take charge. The people are also behind him, as I said before. He may not be at many of your experience levels but he surely is Kage material. Everyone's eyes, especially Tsunade's, widened upon hearing that she would be a mother. Tears began to form in the older woman's eyes as she moved up to wipe them away. A smile had splayed across her face. I'm so happy for them, they had something I could not. Now I get to be a grandmother as well. This is the best news I have heard in quite some time. Congratulations, Naruto. Gaara complimented him. It was simple but very much appreciated by the blonde. Thanks, Gaara. He patted his nearby friend on the shoulder and felt a hand touch his own. He looked up to see Mei smiling at him. He smiled back. I see that is quite a sad yet stunning series of events. I take it that your village has had some difficulty in its creation? Asked the Uzukage but merely received a negative shake of the head. No, actually the village was in peak condition when we arrived. The problem we have is securing trade contracts with other nations. We have no treaties to allow us to trade and it is hurting our people. They need consumers' goods and materials to have need of jobs and other things. Our shinobi corps is relatively disorganized and is in need of an overhaul to which I will be focusing on upon my return. I realize though that what matters the most is that the major nations recognize us as a country, so I would like to ask for your help in speaking with your daimyo. Any help would be much appreciated. Naruto said, hoping to get everything out in the open with the other Kage. It was now their turn to talk amongst themselves with their guards and themselves to see what their opinion on the matter would be. Naruto attempted to guess and gauge their reactions to see if he was correct. My guess is that Tsunade will acknowledge me as will Gaara and Inoki, though I'm not so sure. Then again, it all depends on their country's leaders. I have no say on that. The first to speak was Gaara, who had his hands linked together in front of his face, his elbows on the table as leaned forward. While I'm sure this must be one of the most impulsive and insane things you have ever embarked upon, Naruto, I understand what it means to be young and in charge. I will do what I can to help. As Kazekage, I acknowledge your village and your place as Kage. Naruto smiled and silently thanked his friend. Gaara merely smiled and nodded. Was up next. Naruto couldn't tell what he would say because of the surprisingly stern face that was set upon his features. Naruto should have come before me sooner with this. Of course I will help you and your people, if not because I acknowledge you as a village but for the pure sake of a humanitarian effort. My attendant has already ordered thousands of pounds of protein to be sent there immediately. My people will whip your own into shape. I promise you that. A's face cracked a smile and couldn't help but laugh along with Naruto and Mei as they waited for the last two Kage. Anoki brought his small hand up to his mouth and coughed, bringing quiet for him to speak. I have little knowledge of you, boy, unlike these other Kage. In fact, I feel quite outnumbered by that Buta Kage must make tough decisions that might affect his village, and I'm not sure if at your age you can handle that responsibility. The Kazekage here has shown some ability in that, yet all I see in you is impulsiveness and being rude. Until I see some maturity, IWA will not acknowledge the presence of Yuzu. He stated with finality, and the quietness stayed until Konoha was brought in. Tsunade was frowning. She did not like her decision but could not help but see it as the only answer. Both her and Kakashi had struggled to agree, but in the end they came to the same conclusion: Naruto was not ready for such a position. Naruto watched with a hopeful yet knowing visage as she stood up and looked at him with a serious but very disheartened gaze. Naruto, for the longest time I have known you, I always saw you as a knucklehead ninja. My impression of you since then has changed somewhat. I see you as an honest and strong young man. However, me ninja beliefs are different than your own. It must have to do with me being too old. Your age might not define you as a shinobi, but there are still limits. Even your late father was in his 20s when he took up the oath. You, on the other hand, are barely 18, and yet you are to be a father and a Kage. I don't think you can handle this. As the Hokage, I do not recognize your position as Uzumaki or the country of Yuzu. I'm sorry. She sat back down and held a hand to her forehead to shade her eyes so as not to look into his. She knew he would be shocked and even disappointed. May out of all was the most surprised and angered, whispering a heated yet piercing threat to the woman. Won't be seeing you at the wedding. The blonde woman's eyes widened and she looked up at May, who merely glared right at her. She could not hold her gaze and looked down from the red head, too ashamed to be defiant. Naruto gulped but did nothing about the tension. It was not the right time. Naruto nodded his head after her speech. He had not been expecting it, but he could see her points. He turned to the last one and could already tell by the man's trademark scowl that he was not in favor of it either. I must agree with the Hokage and Tsuchikage, you are much too young for a position of Kage. I cannot imagine why the people chose you, but it does not matter. The land of iron does not acknowledge the presence of the Uzumaki. However, we do recognize Yuzu as an independent civilian state with a shinobi arm. We will send some contractors and supplies to you. It will be limited though. Naruto was surprised at the turn of events with the man's ruling and nodded in thanks to the samurai general. As the vote stands, it is 3-2 in favor of not acknowledging the Uzumaki. Therefore, we must bar you from joining the alliance as a shinobi leader and a Kage. The individual nations, however, may still make their own dealings with you. A's attendant announced. She had been against acknowledging Yuzu, but in the end the Raikage made the decision for himself. Naruto sighed and nodded. He slowly stood up and placed his hat back over his head from its place on the table. Everyone watched as he tipped his head to the assembly and began to walk out with Mei in tow. He paused at the door and turned around one last time. An air of seriousness surrounded him as he cast a hard gaze back at the table. One last thing, the Rokage Mizukage is now our arch-enemy, Madara Uchiha. You have been warned. Naruto took Mei into his arms and disappeared in a flash of yellow. It left the other Kage to scramble amongst each other over the new information. 000 Uzumaki. Because of the Hiration, the time it took for Naruto and Mei to go to and from Kumo and Yuzu was cut drastically. In what they thought would take many days only took a mere few hours. A few people were walking along the cobblestone streets when they saw a brilliant flash of light and their Uzumaki appear with his fiancée. Their eyes shined with surprise and happiness as they flocked to greet the new arrivals. Naruto and Mei were soon swamped with the new arrivals but kept their cool and greeted everyone. Uzumaki-sama. Naruto turned his head to see Ao coming towards him with a few other shinobi of his. They landed from a rooftop and quickly bowed. Yes, what is it, Ao? Have things been alright while I was away? Ao looked up at him and nodded to his question. The people had been well behaved for the morning he was gone. It has been fine, sir. I merely wished to greet you and alert you of a few updates. They have to do with both the village itself and our foreign relations. Naruto nodded and gently pushed through the crowd with his shinobi. Mei decided to allow Naruto to handle this himself and made her way home. Ao led Naruto to a building he didn't remember. It was a silo-shaped office that had the Yuzu symbol and went high into the sky, showing off its jet-black walls. He wanted to inquire about it but just ignored the urge for more pressing matters. They walked inside and went up a few flights of winding stairs to the top and entered an office. A window view of the city was in the back behind a desk and a nice cushioned chair. He looked left and right to find pictures both he and Mei had taken together before and after their time living in Kiri. A few scrolls also decorated the walls. Naruto enjoyed the nice contrast to the outside coloring to the room's red wall coloring. Ao, hot is this place? Naruto turned to look at the man who was smirking like a madman, as were the rest of the Yuzu shinobi. They had made the building while Naruto had been gone. It hadn't been easy, but they had some unlikely help. The lava monkeys arrived with the help of some of the Uzumaki summoners and quickly helped construct the tower for Naruto. Isn't it obvious? This is the Uzukage's office. Naruto's eyes widened and he took a double take of the room, not believing it was his. Are you serious? How did you do all this in just a few short hours? Ao just shrugged and moved over to his desk, pulling the seat back for him playfully. We had some help. Please sit down while I discuss important news with you, Uzukage-sama. Naruto smiled and nodded. He came up and sat in the cushioned chair and sighed as he finally took a break from standing. The rest of you leave us for now, please. Naruto ordered and the shinobi complied, bowing to him before leaving through the door. Naruto and Ao got right down to business when the one-eyed man pulled a scroll from his vest. He set it down on the desk and unfurled it for Naruto to read. The messengers you sent before you left have arrived with the requested signatures and assurances. I must say I was surprised at the outpouring of support. Ao noted as Naruto read the scroll that contained each village's leader signature. Promise of trade and monetary support, Tazuna, Land of Waves Sumeru, Yondaime Hokage, Land of Bears Jirocho Wasabi, Land of Tea Haruna, Land of Vegetables Michiru, Land of the Moon Shibuki, Shodai Takakage, Land of the Waterfalls. Promise of military support, Sumeru, Yondaime Hokage, Land of Bears Shibuki, Shodai Takakage, Land of the Waterfalls Michiru, Land of the Moon. Naruto read it over again and was still stunned by the amount of signers his treaty request was given. Naruto had no idea any of these villages actually remembered him, let alone realized the gravity of the situation Yuzu no Kuni was in. This is wonderful. He whispered, unable to speak any louder lest he break the moment. I also finished reviewing those changes to our military you wanted me to look over. Other than those hurricanes, I have no problems with most of it. I'm mainly curious about it all though, so you will have to explain. Naruto nodded. He gestured for Ao to take a seat and they began to discuss the future of Yuzu's shinobi system. 000 Uzumaki compound. Yuzu clan head building bedroom. Naruto and Mei lay on their bed, caressing each other lovingly. They both had had such a long day that all they wanted to do was hold one another and relax. Naruto stuck his tongue into Mei's mouth and she welcomed it with her own, enticing the wet muscles into a duel of dominance. She moaned as she dutifully lost and allowed her tongue to be ravaged by him and her naked breasts to be groped by his wandering hands. Her own hands were not idle as they moved to his member and began to stroke his shaft. They both lay naked in bed after a passionate bath with one another. I love you, Meiheim. Naruto gasped out in a heat of passion as he continued to suckle on her breasts, eliciting a moan from the older woman. Ah! I love you too, Naruto. She moaned again from his ministrations and wished that it could last forever. With that thought she suddenly placed her hands on his shoulders and stopped him. Naruto, I want to have our wedding soon. Naruto looked up into her eyes in surprise. She just thought of that? When would you like to have it? She took no time to think and blurted it out as if she had it memorized. Right after the baby is born. It will be perfect. We will have it right on the whirlpool field surrounding the island and have a beach picnic for the reception. Naruto smiled at her enthusiasm and kissed her forehead, bringing out a giggle from the woman as he held her close. Sounds awesome, May. Have you thought of a name yet? May took a moment to collect her thoughts before looking back at his eyes. Well, I have thought of a name if it is boy or a girl. You remember telling me about the four tails, Rashi? Naruto nodded, his face taking a more sorrowful look. I thought that in his honor, we could name him Rashi. The blonde perked up at that. It was a wonderful way to always remember the man who sacrificed himself. That sounds wonderful. What about if it's a girl? May again took a moment to think before touching his chin with her finger, a playful smirk on her face. How about Nariko? It sounds so similar to your name and it means thunder. With your stamina I'm sure she would live up to the name. Naruto blushed and smiled at the woman below him. He leaned in for a kiss when a sudden wind blew their balcony door open and forced a nice draft into the room. Naruto looked over towards it and sighed. He regretfully got up and moved to close the glass door. As soon as he reached it, a piece of paper shaped as an airplane slammed into his forehead and caused him to cringe in surprise and pain. He looked down at the crumpled mass that fluttered with the wind as it stayed low to the ground. He picked it up to examine it. Right before his eyes, the piece of paper unfolded into a blank sheet before a set of lips formed on it. Naruto held it up to his face to better hear what the feminine voice whispered. We were unable to see you today, Naruto Uzumaki, but we will meet with you sometime in the future. My leader wishes to have a word with you. He wishes to find a new way to end the cycle of pain. Goodbye, Naruto Uzumaki. And with that, the paper flew out of his hand and went back out into the night sky, leaving a stupefied Naruto on the terrace. Naruto, come back inside. The blonde heeded his lover's call and turned around, taking one last glance to the moon hanging above before returning to his warm bed and his soon-to-be wife. Life had taken quite a turn for him in the last few weeks, but he was determined to make the most of it. He would forge a better tomorrow as the Shodai Uzukage, not just for himself or his people, but for their children that were coming into the world with great hope for the future. Naruto would deliver upon them the greatest gift of all, world peace. Uzumaki Compound Inner Estate Uzukage's bed chambers. Naruto Uzumaki stood before a mirror within his bed chambers. He was finishing up the final preparations of his traditional Uzumaki clothing for the big event today. May had insisted that he wear civilian clothes for the wedding and she would hear no complaining from him. He gave himself a critique of the outfit as he turned to observe the whole thing. Well, I suppose it's all right. The baggy, red pants are made of a fine silk and reach all the way to my sandals. They have gold embroidery along the pant leg of a plant of vine and they are very comfortable to wear. The shirt itself is similar to May's top. It's a very loose red shirt with a single sleeve on one side. It also has the golden vine design that starts from the chest up along to my shoulder and coming to a stop at my wrist. Just as he finished, another presence entered the room. He turned to see a hooded figure. The red cloak it wore made it difficult to distinguish any characteristics about the person beneath. He looked to where the face should have been but instead was met by a mask, very similar to Madara Uchiha's. Yet, instead of an orange swirl with a single eye, this person had a crimson-red mask that allowed both eyes to see. Sir, the security has been organized. Your wedding will begin in approximately 10 minutes and the others are waiting outside to escort you and May to the beach. Naruto smoothed out his shirt once more before smiling at the hurricane. Thank you, Kaze. I will be out in a minute. The figure bowed and exited the room as silently and quickly as it had first come. The Yuzu Hurricane Squad, probably the most interesting addition I made in our forces. I chose only 6 members, 2 from each of the dominant clans. 1 female and male from each clan are inducted into the squad with the chief objective to protect me, the Uzukage. They are the elite, above even the ANBU in power yet unable to match a full-fledged Kage alone. Their names have been erased though, so I must call them by their code names. That one I spoke to was from the Uzumaki so I called him Kaze for wind, as the maelstrom of a hurricane is from the wind. I better not keep May waiting, besides she is the one that knows about the traditions more than I do. Naruto had never been to a wedding before back in his days in Kiri and Konoha. Most often those who were ninja and loved each other often chose to remain as lovers or engaged to lessen the blow of losing someone so dear. Mei insisted that Uzumaki traditional weddings were much different from anything he would have known about and were the epitome of unconditional love ceremonies. The Uzumaki in the past were not spiritual in any way, so the word marriage was often considered the incorrect word to use. A bond of love taken to the highest degree, that's what Mei said at least. As long as it means I get to be with her for the rest of my life, I don't care what I have to do. Having wasted enough time, Naruto moved away from the mirror and walked towards the door. On his way out, he passed by the small crib that he had built a few weeks ago for the baby. It was made of wood and was colored a deep crimson red. His soon-to-be wife had dolled it up considerably in her spare time, which was a lot because of her lack of duties, and had placed small Uzumaki swirls and other symbols littering the small bed for the baby. Little Rashi loved it, but our little boy always seems to be smiling. Mei took him downstairs. He will be attending the wedding with us. Yes, the little baby had been a boy, and Naruto and Mei had never been so proud upon his birth exactly a month ago. The doctors told them that he was completely healthy with no problems, and they confirmed that the child had the Uzumaki bloodline within him, furthering their pride. He opened his door to come face to face with his 6 shadows. The hurricanes all were wearing the identical cloaks and masks, making it difficult for him to tell them apart. Only after getting to know them all was he able to pick out each clan's separate traits that allowed him to distinguish them. "Ready, sir?" asked one of the Ranmaru. They represented the eye of the storm with their all-seeing bloodline. "Yes, is my family downstairs?" They all nodded, and Naruto walked past them to head down the staircase. All 6 fell into step behind him. As he stepped onto the first floor, Naruto peered around a corner to look into the family room. Mei was sitting on the couch, happily breastfeeding little Rashi. Her folk outfit remained the same as her Jonin uniform. It settled as both. He lightly tapped his fingers on the wall to get her attention away from the baby. Mei looked up in curiosity to find Naruto looking over at her and the baby with a fatherly smile, one of pride. She smiled and looked down at the baby when she felt him stop sucking. It appeared Rashi had fallen asleep from her lullaby she had been humming. Mei made herself decent and gently lifted herself up, beginning her walk towards Naruto, who was leaning on the door frame now. "Mei, he looks just like you," Naruto whispered lovingly as she approached, bringing out a bright smile from the woman. It was true that at a distance, Rashi could pass off as a clone of his mother. With his russet red hair and smooth features, the baby really was a male image of her. Now, you can't rule yourself out of him entirely," she whispered back, playfully using a finger to point at his closed eyes. Naruto smirked. The baby had inherited Naruto's striking blue eyes as well as show some early personality traits just like his own. Mei had noted that while feeding him, he just didn't stop until he fell asleep or his stomach began to ache. It seemed as though the boy would have Naruto's stubborn determination, something Mei wasn't too excited about for when he grew older. "I'm so happy that you were able to bring our baby into the world. It just seems like magic happened that night." He hesitantly moved his hand to the baby's face, gently tickling his cheeks as he slept. "I'm happy too. That doesn't mean I felt so good afterward though. How are those bruises healing up, Koi?" Naruto instinctively reached for his left arm. Mei had done quite a beating just gripping his arm. "It's getting better, no thanks to you though." Mei just smiled innocently as she remembered that as soon as she was allowed to leave the hospital, she jumped Naruto in their home. "Sorry, I just can't resist." Naruto sighed and looked over his shoulder to see the guards waiting for them patiently. He turned around and kissed Mei, pulling away before she could further it. "Are you ready, love?" Mei smiled and nodded. She moved Rashi to where she held him comfortably in her arms for walking. Naruto nodded to the hurricanes near the door and they opened the portal to outside. A loud cheering erupted from the exit as Naruto exited with an arm around Mei's waist. The entire Uzumaki clan watched as they exited the inner compound and exited into the main clan grounds. The couple walked along a narrow path that allowed the hurricanes to walk on either side of them, keenly watching for threats. Naruto leaned in close to Mei's ear and whispered to her. "Once we get to the beach, I'm going to leave for a few minutes to go pick up a guest I want to be here." She looked back at him suspiciously and he held his free hand up in defense. "It isn't Tsunade, I know how you are still somewhat angry about the whole thing." Mei breathed a small sigh of relief. She wasn't so much angry anymore but disappointed in the woman's lack of faith. "Who is it then?" she asked, just barely over the crowd's cheering. "It's Kakashi, it would mean a lot to me if he was here." Mei thought about the man in question and shrugged after a moment. She didn't mind. "That's fine, as long as he behaves." Naruto nodded and the two continued their walk through the streets in silence as they waved and acknowledged the entire population of Yuzu. It seemed as though everyone was out to say, "Congratulations," to the couple and everyone within the village had been given an invite. As the couple would walk by, the people would fall into step behind. Shinobi and civilians mixed in the crowd as everyone followed the couple into the jungle foliage. The only ones who remained separate from the procession were the village's elite, the ANBU. Over 24 in number, the group fulfilled similar places in Yuzu as any other major villages. The differences were mainly cosmetic. Their armor instead of gray/white was a red color akin to the Jonin vests of Yuzu. They retained the animal masks used by similar organizations except for a few special squads with unique masks. The ANBU Corps had been watching over the city from the rooftops as they had walked by. Their orders were to keep eyes out for any threats to the Uzumaki and nothing else. They gathered at the village gate upon the population's exit and seemed to wait for someone's arrival. "Sir." Every ANBU present turned to salute the one shinobi that had just arrived. His armor was hidden behind a red cloak similar to the hurricanes and his face was covered by a white swirl mask. "All right, the villagers have left with the Uzumaki. Our job is to keep an eye on him, so let's not fall behind. Move out." "Yes, sir." The shinobi in front of him disappeared and the general looked around for a moment before walking through the open gate to meet up with the Uzumaki. "No way am I going to miss this wedding," Ao thought with a smirk as he jumped through the trees to the beach. 000 Yuzu Island Beach. Naruto and Mei stood in front of the large congregation of people to announce the beginning of the wedding. The blonde peered past them to see dozens of lava monkeys hiding within the trees, also curious about the ceremony. He had invited them as well and it seemed that they would come to watch as well. "People of Yuzu." Naruto quickly got their attention and the chatter died down. "Today is a most glorious day for us. My fiancée Mei Uzumaki and myself will be embarking onto the greatest path anyone could choose for themselves, eternal bondage. Our love together is too strong for us to remain as we are. You can see the fruits of it from our child right in the crowd." Naruto pointed out Rashi, who was in the arms of one of the female hurricanes. Albeit her occupation, she held him reverently and lovingly as if she was his mother. The people clapped and applauded as they did on the night he was born. Naruto and Mei held each other close as they heard the applause given to their son and themselves. The happiness was overwhelming as the couple stood before their people. "Naruto, now would be a good time to go get Kakashi." Mei whispered in his ear and he nodded. "Shadow clone." Naruto quickly replaced himself with a shadow clone before he teleported away to Konoha to find his old teacher and friend Kakashi Hatake. 000 Konoha training fields. Naruto appeared at the place of where Kakashi was supposedly. He had placed a seal on him long ago just in case of a contingency. He was glad he remembered it for this occasion. He took in his surroundings. He was standing in a green field apparently within Konoha. There was 3 wooden stakes in the ground and that immediately told him that this was training ground 7. "Naruto?" The Uzumaki turned to find Kakashi sitting under a tree. He was reading his Ika book when he saw Naruto appear in a yellow flash. His one revealed eye was widened in surprise. He had not been expecting the boy in Konoha for any reason. "Hey Kakashi." Naruto walked over to the man and picked him up by the vest, surprising the man as he was lifted off the ground. You wanna be my best man? The question threw Kakashi for a loop. What was he talking about? Wait, you are getting married? When? Naruto smirked. Right now. Without another word, the two disappeared in a silver/yellow flash. 000 Yuzu Island Beach. The wait for the people had only been a minute or so when Naruto and Kakashi appeared in a flash. Naruto was smiling upon his return while Kakashi looked half dead and ready to puke. He dropped to his knees and held his stomach with his hand. Mei could sympathize with him as she had been in the same position not too long ago. Next time give me more warning. Kakashi ground out, trying to take deep breaths to keep from vomiting. Naruto scratched the back of his head in embarrassment. Sorry about that. But now that we are back, Mei and I can begin. Naruto walked over to Mei and took her hand with his own as Kakashi joined the crowd in watching. Mei began to speak and explain the ritual to those gathered. Many of the Uzumaki gathered here today will have only heard of this bonding ritual from their parents or grandparents, so I will explain. Naruto and I will walk across the whirlpool fields barefoot and only we may cross. You all must remain here. Once we reach the center of the largest whirlpool, we will stand on the edge of it and say our vows to one another. Upon their completion, we will begin to walk over the abyss of the whirlpool. If our union is made of true feelings, the whirlpool will calm beneath our feet and allow us to walk across unharmed. If it isn't, Mei looked to Naruto and back to Rashi, tightening her grip of his hand. The whirlpool will intensify and swallow us, bringing our lives to their end. The people gasped, Uzumaki and other alike. What? You can't do that, it's too risky. We can't lose our Uzukage just like that. There must be something else. Let them do it. The crowd centered on Kakashi, who had grown annoyed by the crowd's concern. While it was necessary to worry about your Kage if he or she was in danger, you must be able to put faith in them as well. Why should we listen to you? You were the one that denied our village along with your Hokage. Yeah. Why are you even here? I'm here because Naruto wants me to be. While I am still not sure if he can handle the duties of a Kage, I know damn well that he is a good honest man about his feelings. I don't believe that there is any chance of them dying, it's because I have confidence in them. Naruto and Mei smiled at Kakashi and looked to see the crowd slowly come around. We shall start the ritual now. Naruto and Mei walked over to their baby and kissed him one last time before taking off their shoes and walking across the water. Never did they allow their hands to separate as they went out into the sea. The people watched as the figures became small blurs in the distance and could only wait and watch. Kakashi watched for a time before going over to the Hurricanes, who were probably the most worried of all. Their duty was to protect the Uzukage, yet they were not allowed to accompany him and it hurt them inside. He walked up to the woman who held the baby and began to smile as he looked at how the baby looked like a perfect combination of the parents. May I hold him? Kakashi asked politely, fully expecting a rebuke from the masked redhead. She looked at the baby and then back at Kakashi before slowly reaching her arms out to hand the baby over. Kakashi's eyes widened as he slowly took the baby into his own arms and held him. Please be careful with Rashi, he truly is the pride and joy of those two. Kakashi glanced at her and nodded, unable to keep his eyes off the baby he had unknowingly begun to rock. I can't believe my student had a kid before I did. He even became the leader of a village. Wow, Kakashi just couldn't believe how far Naruto had come. It was at this point he realized that he should have followed his own beliefs back at the meeting. He shouldn't have just abandoned Naruto like that, he should have believed in him. Naruto have long surpassed me in all ways. The torch has already been passed without me even knowing it. He looked out to see where the two small blurs remained stationary near the whirlpool. He looked back down at the baby. Now you just have to come back and give this little one here the family and love it deserves and lead these people the way we all know you can. Come on, Naruto. 000 Yuzu Island Eastern Whirlpool Fields. Naruto and Mei stood facing one another, hand in hand next to the abyss of a whirlpool. The diameter was over a mile in length, making it one of the largest to ever exist. They did not notice though, they only had eyes for each other during such a loving ceremony. "What next, Mei?" Naruto asked tenderly, massaging her hands with his fingers. She smiled at his actions. "Next is the blood infusion to the whirlpool. We both cut our finger and let the blood drop into the whirlpool, therefore allowing it to recognize us. We then bring the fingers to our lover's mouth and let them suck the remaining blood clean. This represents our willingness to give each other everything because blood is literally our life force and one of the most important things to any warrior." Naruto nodded in understanding before releasing one of her hands to bite this thumb. Mei took her free hand back to do the same. They bit their thumbs and moved them so that the fingers were just over the edge of the abyss. Naruto and Mei watched as the blood slowly dripped and fell into the swirling vortex, intermingling with one another in a red pool before losing themselves to the blue water. The thumbs were brought back and then gently placed on the lips of their partners. Naruto took Mei's slender thumb into his mouth and licked the copper-tasting fluid away from the cut before swallowing. Mei did the same to his and repeated the process until the cuts no longer bled, leaving them to rejoin hands and wait for the next part. "Now we say our vows to one another." Again, vows might not be the best word to describe it, but the action functions as the same. We tell each other why we are together and what our lives will continue to be while we are married. Naruto could only watch in wonder as Mei took his hands close to her heart and began to speak softly. "Naruto, I love you with all my heart. When I first met you over 3 years ago, I thought you were just another silly boy chasing a foolhardy dream. As I see now, my first impressions were very wrong of just what you were capable of. From the start my feelings for you grew, as did my passion to see you succeed in your dream of bringing Yuzu back from nothing. Our child together was the single most outstanding gift you have ever given me, and I can't wait for you to gift me again." Mei playfully waggled her eyebrows and Naruto blushed in response. "May I never be separated from you in any way, shape, or form. I only wish to be with you and only you for the rest of my days as Mei Uzumaki. Our times that we live in now are sorrowful and fraught with danger, but within my heart I hold out hope that is as strong as my love for you and Rashi. That hope is that one day you will lead us onward to a better day, you will bring peace to this world. I have hope for this because I know you, and I know your love for this world's people is strong. Naruto Uzumaki, I am yours." By this time, both their eyes had garnered tears and now they were free to spill as the lovers stood there with one another. Naruto fought back his tears as he gently guided their hands close to his chest. He leaned down and gently kissed her fingers as they interlocked with his own before he began. "Mei, the love I have for you surpasses anything I could ever say or do. From the time we have met up until now, your beauty and personality has captivated me to the point of insanity. Sometimes I tell myself this is a dream, that one day I will wake up and everything will go back to the way it was. The hate and misgivings from those in Konoha gave me a frightening reality that made me hold on to what I had in this world more than anything. With your love though, I was able to see past that and realize that what I have been living in is a world made by our own accord, not someone else. May I will always be with you, through life or death I will never stray from my place by your side." With his speech finished, Naruto moved in to kiss his love-struck beauty on the lips. He knew that this was not the end to their trial, but he only wished the warmth that emanated from his heart to last forever. Everything he had said was true, he only wished to be with Mei and nothing else would matter. Naruto would live for her, kill for her, die for her if it only meant he would see her again one last time. From what she had told him there was no doubt in his mind she felt the same way. Their kiss ended, Mei knew there was only one thing left to do. Both slowly turned to face the whirlpool, its raging waters forever in a spinning cycle of destruction. There was no indication it would slow down or stop for them, but they had confidence that they would get through it together. "Ready, Mei?" Naruto asked, slightly tightening his grip on her hand as they prepared to take the plunge. She looked at him with a smile, one that was totally carefree with no prior engagement. Yes, I am Naruto." The two lifted one foot up and simultaneously brought it down over the water edge. When it looked as though both would fall and be dragged under, the vortex slowed down to accommodate their feet. They tightened their grips as they took another step and another, slowly and carefully across the whirlpool until they reached the calm center that now resembled calm seas. With this, they knew that their love was meant to be forever and always. One last time, the now husband and wife took each other into their arms and kissed. They were now one with each other and the whirlpool. 000 Yuzu Island Beach. The people waited with heated anxiety. They wanted to know if the Uzumaki had lived or not. The people had lost track of the small blurs that had constituted as Mei and Naruto and were now unsure whether they were alive or not. Ao and the Anbu had finally revealed themselves instead of hiding amongst the trees. They stood near the Yuzu Hurricanes and Kakashi at the front of the welcoming committee. They could have at least told us how long this would take, Ao mumbled underneath his mask, unhappy with the wait. One of the Anbu with a suspiciously familiar sword turned toward the general and laughed a bit. His mask was that of a flounder, the fish that his sword was based off of. Now Ao senpai, isn't it best we allow them to have their time together? This is a romantic kind of thing, I think. Ao sighed and looked over at Chojuro, who was surely blushing at the mention of romance. Yes, but still, it isn't every day the Uzumaki gets married and allows no witnesses. I just wish we knew how long they would be without us. One of the hurricanes spoke up, the Uzumaki male. These rituals are very important to the Uzumaki, even the younger generations. They find them interesting and romantic even if some of the past ideals they were made for are forgotten. The older generation still appreciates that they are practiced. The Uzumaki and his fiancée knew what they were getting into. Ao just huffed and turned his attention back to the sea. Kakashi thought he saw something and lifted his headband up to reveal his Sharingan. A few nearby ninja were surprised to see the rare Idojitsu but said nothing. Ao activated his Byakugan and searched as well for the returning couple. There they are, he said out loud. He found them returning to the shore within a mile's distance. Yep, guess that means they didn't get swallowed up. Kakashi commented as he placed his headband back over his eye. And that means that our Uzumaki is married now to his partner. This is wonderful news, said the female Uzumaki hurricane. Her happiness was evident in the lightness of her voice. It wasn't long before the Uzumaki couple came into view for the remaining people gathered, eliciting a large cheer from them. The Uzumaki and his wife had survived. Naruto and Mei came onto shore. The first thing they did was take their child into their arms and smother him with love. Naruto kissed his forehead and lightly rubbed his head where hair had begun to grow. Mei held him in her arms and rocked him, gently humming an Uzumaki folk lullaby. Everyone could obviously see the love emanating from the new family and dared not say a word. Soon after their arrival, the Uzumaki couple announced to everyone that the party could begin. Dancing and food was the main attraction and everyone had plenty of fun. As the afternoon went into the night, bonfires were lit as the people prepared to stay up until dawn. During this time, Naruto returned Kakashi back to Konoha and thanked him for coming. Kakashi was happy to oblige and told him to feel free and teleport me back sometime. Naruto planned on making good on that promise. 000 Uzumaki office. Next day Naruto sat in his comfortable chair reviewing some documents sent to him by the civilian government. They were planning on taking a small percentage of workers and use them to build and maintain a trading dock to make things easier as far as moving and receiving goods from other countries. His Kage robes made it a bit difficult to move comfortably without messing them up, but Naruto was able to reach over his desk and grab his approved stamp. He neatly placed the labeled documents in the correct bins and saw that he had nothing else to read. Naruto took his hat off and smoothed his hair back. He picked up the picture that stood on his desk. It was taken recently. He along with Mei held the baby and posed for the picture on their balcony. It gave a great background of the green rain forest and it made his heart flutter any time he would look at it. He felt a presence approach and placed the picture back in its place. A messenger quickly entered and bowed to the Uzumaki. He was a shinobi, a chunin if Naruto had to guess. He held 2 scrolls that were quickly placed on Naruto's desk for him to peruse. "What are these?" Naruto asked as he picked up one and began to untie it. "They are 2 priority messages sent in from ninja observers. The one you are about to read is a message sent from one of our ninja within the Land of Spring, as well as a letter personally from Daimyo Kazahana. The second is a scroll from our observers within the Land of Waves. It is a monthly status report." Naruto nodded and opened the scroll he had first chosen to read from his spring observers. "Sir, since the last time we have reported in, things have gotten worse here in spring. Daimyo Kazahana at first denied our request for trade because of political instability. It seems that her double duty of both being an actress and a leader was too much for her people to handle, and they have chosen rebellion. A small terrorist group of fanatics are based here within spring. They believe in what Dota Kazahana once said and believe that the land must return to a snowy wasteland for their ninja to thrive. It has grown in popularity and is now on the verge of violence against Daimyo Kazahana's forces. She has sent me this letter to give to you. Dear Uzumaki-sama, Naruto, I apologize for not writing sooner, but my country is once again facing a disaster. When you first requested an alliance, I won't lie and say I didn't think it was a joke. But now with your Yuzu ninja inside my country, they have told me much about your situation back in Yuzu no Kuni. With your power, I beseech you to help me again as you did 5 years ago. I know I am very undeserving of it, after already being given a second chance by you. If not for me, please bring order to my country for my people. They have seen so much bloodshed, I don't want to be the cause of more. These rebels, they are threatening to destroy the heat generator, the one thing that brought peace and prosperity back to the land, and they wish to return us to a frozen ball of ice. Please Uzumaki, come to our rescue. I promise to give you whatever you want in return, just please save my people as you did once before. We will await your response with bated breath, please hurry. Sincerely, Koyuki Kazahana, Daimyo of Land of Spring. Naruto was taken back by what sounded like begging from the strong young woman Naruto had remembered so well from 5 years ago. With the promise of reward great for Yuzu if he pledged support, Naruto easily decided that he would come to help Koyuki. He moved on to the second and unfurled it to find a short but groundbreaking message. Status report: Yuzu Outpost Wave Country. As ordered by Uzumaki-sama, we have set up a small base of operations in Wave Country. This message is high priority for the fact of what we have found within the small country's borders. The 3-tailed turtle is within one of this country's many lakes, wild and without a Jinchuriki. We are requesting advice on how to proceed with this information with the threat of Akatsuki's goal apparent. Naruto reread the line a few times to make sure he did not see wrong. 3-tailed turtle. Because they had found it before Akatsuki, that meant they could do something to halt their advance. He looked up to see that the Chunin was still there, waiting for orders. I need you to go to ANBU headquarters, ask the general to send the beast tamers here immediately. The man stood up and quickly nodded before disappearing in a blur. Naruto sighed and placed his hat back on. Naruto stood up and walked over to his window behind his desk to look outside. He could never get tired of the view, for it was second only to his house's balcony in terms of scope and grandeur. His Kage hat hid most of his face as he tipped it down further to keep the glaring sun from his eyes. From behind him, all 6 of the hurricanes appeared, releasing their hiding genjutsu to stand to the front of the Uzukage's desk. Sir? One of the AIM asked. The reign of the hurricane. The Hyo clan ice users were known for their deadly and unparalleled use of the ice element. Prepare to leave immediately, we will head to Spring and support Daimyo Kazahana. Meanwhile, the beast tamers will move to secure the 3 tails in the nearby country of Wave. His shadows were shocked. He would actually lead them? Sir, wouldn't it be better to send a squad of ANBU or a battalion of regular shinobi to support the country of Spring? Why should you have to go personally? Naruto turned from the window and looked at his 6 bodyguards, a smile forming on his face. A Kage must not be afraid to get his hands dirty. Besides, Our country is young and our military while organized is still subpar compared to Konoha or Kumo. We are barely a match for a weak power like Suna or Kiri. Every shinobi must do his part. Anyway, Koyuki specifically requested me, and I won't turn down the offer to see her again. If I go, we have a much better chance of working out a diplomatic deal that greatly benefits Uzumaki. Understand? His shinobi nodded, although they were still reluctant. They felt 8 new presences and turned to find 8 ANBU kneeling to the Uzumaki. While they wore ANBU armor, as beast tamers they had a unique style. Their armor was littered with scrolls interlocked through chains, crisscrossing everywhere. Their masks, instead of an animal, were completely blank with not even any eye slits to allow the users to see. The leader of the group held a single large scroll on his back the size of a small child, obviously to be used to seal something large. The scroll size is about the same as the scroll Naruto had on during his fight with Pain. "Sir, you called for us?" said the leader. It was a man with a brown mane of hair kept in check. Naruto went closer to his desk and threw the scroll with the information from Wave at the man, who caught it deftly as if he could see just fine. He unfurled it and read it with quick and practiced eyes, looking back up at Naruto. "You wish us to capture the 3 tails before Akatsuki can take it?" asked the man. Naruto smiled at his perception. "Right as always, Akaru. You will be the only one sent there, though, as you know our manpower is still relatively low. Can you handle yourselves?" The man stood up from his kneeling position and his men followed suit. "Of course, sir, we will get the job done." Naruto smirked. This was the reason why he had created the beast tamers. With the information on Jinchuriki and tailed beast sealing I found within the scroll, I decided to make a special sect of men in ANBU to handle just this kind of operation. They are experts with Fuinjutsu and are just as good of fighters as any other ANBU out there. With Akatsuki's threat of using tailed beasts against us, this squad will be a primary source of advantage for Yuzu in the coming war. "Good, then you are dismissed." Naruto watched as they too disappeared, leaving him with his hurricanes. "Make the preparations, I must go home and spend some time with my wife and little Rashi." Naruto left in a bright flash that signaled to his hurricanes that they were dismissed. 000 Uzumaki compound inner estate. A few hours later Naruto had come home and explained the turn of events to Mei, who was very understanding. It didn't mean she had to like the fact that her newly made husband was leaving her and their child so soon, but he always came back. She would just hold out with worry for a few days before he would come home safe and sound. He spent time with both her and the baby until it was late in the evening, almost time for him to leave. He had chosen to travel conspicuously but with a certain power to his outfit. Contrary to hiding like a rat as some ninja or Kage would do in the event of traveling to a different country, Naruto chose to wear ninja clothing instead. To lessen the chance of danger, Naruto had chosen to wear identical clothing to his hurricanes. The standard ANBU gear, red chest, arm, and leg armor with black gloves, pants, and sandals. He also took a spare swirl mask to place on when they arrived in spring. He personally didn't like to wear the mask, but the hurricanes never complained. "The hurricanes, they are waiting outside. Better hurry." Naruto stuffed the mask into his red cloak's inner pocket before clasping it at the neck. He had already placed on his outfit while Mei settled the baby in for bed and prepared for sleep herself. Leaving the closet, Naruto saw a cute sight. His wife was leaning over the crib walls and gently singing a lullaby to little Rashi. His eyes were half-lidded as he looked up at his mother with a little smile. She herself looked very delighted as the baby slowly fell asleep. He walked out and wrapped his arms around her waist as she stood up from her accomplished mission of making the baby fall asleep. He kissed her cheek and then her lips before parting only for a moment. The blonde Kage bent his knees and reached into the crib to lay a small kiss on the baby's forehead and ruffle his non-existent hair very lightly. "Hey, I just got him to sleep. Don't wake him up." Mei playfully slapped his arm and made him get up and turn to face her. He looked into her eyes with love as she returned it. The newlyweds had had plenty of fun the night before and had planned on continuing it only for him to receive the unfortunate news from Spring and Wave. "You will come back, right, Koi?" May asked, already knowing his answer but feeling as though she still needed convincing. Naruto looped his arms around her and held her body close, bringing out a sigh from her. It was a happy sigh, but the sound cracked near the end, showing her tearful concern. "Of course I will, we are married now, remember? I'm stuck with you for the rest of my life." The way he said it made May just want to slap him silly, but she resisted, simply laying a hand on his cheek instead. "I believe you, I believe in you. Just remember you have a family now, that is another reason for you to come back home alive. Don't stop thinking about us." Her voice cracked again into a little sob and Naruto tightened his grip on her, whispering into her ear encouraging words. "You forget, May, that my family is the only reason I come back. Not just you and Rashi, but everyone in this village needs me as if we are all one big family. With that kind of responsibility, I won't ever stop coming back to you, I promise." Naruto picked her up as if he would a bride and laid her down in the bed and placed the covers over her. "I love you, Koi," he whispered before kissing her forehead as he did the baby's. "And I you, Koi." She placed a hand over his that remained on the bedside until a light tapping signaled it was time to go. He gave her one last taste of his mouth before getting up and walking to the door. All the lights within the room were off and upon opening the door the hallway light made his figure look like an eerie shadow hanging in the doorway. He looked over his shoulder one last time. "Sweet dreams, you too." He closed the door softly behind him before turning to his 6 hurricanes who waited obediently for his orders. Naruto took out his red swirl mask and placed it over his face, hiding his identity from all those who would look at them. "Let's move out." Land of Spring Open Sea Naruto stood aboard the deck of a small transport barge headed for Spring. He and his men had boarded it in the middle of the ocean and had calmly alerted the captain of their mission. The old man had no qualms with them, especially after they revealed they were ninja, so they had taken up a quiet residence in one of the boat's empty rooms. Naruto had gone up to the top deck though to observe their arrival firsthand. It had been quite some time since his last arrival there. At the time, he had no idea what to expect from the frozen country, but now it was supposedly a spring paradise for tourists. With Koyuki's panicked letter though, it might not be spring for long. He thought with regret of not being able to do anything sooner. He was still masked to prevent anyone of knowing his identity. He did not want to take chances. It was rare for a Hokage to leave his village, especially during war times. If someone, possibly a spy or agent for Akatsuki, found out he was heading for Spring, it would spell trouble for them in the future. A strong gust blew against the ship and Naruto tightened the cloak to his body further. The ANBU clothing he wore was prepared for the warm summer Spring was apparently in, not for a cold winter. They were approaching the shore and Naruto could still see no sign of the green land he had left, merely gray or white landscape instead. The Hokage turned around to see his hurricanes had gotten out as well. They gathered around behind him and observed the fast approaching land for themselves. "I thought it was supposed to be springtime here, Uzumaki-sama?" one of them asked. "Yes, that is exactly what time of the year it's supposed to be. Something obviously isn't right here." They shifted uncomfortably. If Naruto believed something wrong, then it must have been something bad. "We are approaching shore," yelled out the captain from the raised bridge behind them. "Me, check the dock for anything suspicious," Naruto ordered to the 2 Ranmaru who spurred into action. "Yes, Uzumaki-sama." They answered swiftly as they activated their bloodline. Without masks, a person could see their eyes glow red. A small battalion of snow ninja are located within the small port city. They appear to be waiting for this ship to dock. "I estimate over 20 in number, sir," the male reported and was confirmed by the female's nod. Naruto sighed in exasperation. It seems as though the rebellion has already taken place. We first must find our ninja located within the country and devise a way to get to Daimyo Kazahana before the Ice Shinobi can. Aim, your clan are the original owners of Ice Release, yours should be superior to these imitators. I will be relying on you during the coming battles. The two Hyo clansmen stood a bit straighter and nodded in confidence with their leader's positive appraisal. We won't fail you, Naruto-sama. Naruto nodded and suddenly leaped off the ship and onto the ice-cold water that churned with a stormy disposition. The hurricane soon followed and the seven were on their way to land with an alternate route. Naruto wished to avoid fighting as much as possible to avoid drawing attention and also to make sure he did not hurt the wrong people. If a fight broke out in the city, it was sure to lead to civilian casualties that would not be good for Yuzu's reputation. The group arrived on land and they quickly sorted out what to do next. The Uzumaki Hurricanes pulled out their map and pointed at the last known location of their shinobi. It was within the capital city with the daimyo castle. If the rebellion is taking place right now, that will surely be the loyalist stronghold. Hopefully it remains intact, otherwise we will have to fight our way in. Let's move. They disappeared into red blurs as they moved quickly through the barren white landscape. All kept silent on their journey, too busy worrying about the mission to talk. The signs of war were unsettling as they approached the capital city. Blood, dropped weapons, even a few bodies laid strewn across the snow and were slowly getting covered up by the ever-falling precipitation. Naruto could recognize some as snow ninja and others as civilian warriors, but none were alive to tell them the tale of the battle. Sir, look there. Naruto turned to his right to see a column of smoke rise into the air coming from the direction of the capital. The seven moved quickly into position on a ridge that gave them a bird's-eye view of the small palace. The column of smoke was actually a large fire that had engulfed the daimyo palace. Ironic, Naruto thought, as the ice ninja actively used ice instead of fire. Another explosion rocked the city, this one instead being made of a large spike of ice crushing a small building. The Ranmura described the chaos with an unparalleled view with their special eyes. Dozens of snow shinobi are ransacking the capital. They are indiscriminately killing civilians and destroying whatever stands in their way. It looks as though the palace has been overrun. All the fighting is within the palace itself as all the defenders outside are dead. The snow shinobi are coming in trickles, but the main force is moving quickly to the besieged area. If we do not move quickly, the daimyo will surely be killed or captured. Naruto pondered it for a moment, giving his hurricanes the chance to talk. Sir, we don't even know if this woman is still alive. We could be wasting our time trying to rescue her when she could already be dead, or even worse, this is a trap organized by the snow shinobi. They had troops waiting at the docks, maybe they knew we were coming. One of the Uzumaki suggested, his red mane of hair kept short and his hidden gray eyes burned with cynicism of the situation. They have no reason to kill the daimyo just yet, argued the female Uzumaki. She glared at her teammate for his horrid idea. They could use her as a bargaining chip or a puppet to rule the people. They can't afford to kill her. One of the Hyo scoffed and they turned towards him. Yes, because the snow shinobi obviously care about the civilians enough to rule them. You see those dead bodies, those destroyed buildings. All of those were civilian structures. They only want power and nothing else. Naruto began to scowl as the arguing grew in both volume and hostility. The clans got along well enough, but individuals were too difficult to read. That's enough. Naruto allowed his booming voice to echo over the six before him, leading them to instantly quiet down. He looked at each of their masked faces with feigned disgust and disappointment, as he had expected better. Arguing will get us nowhere. Allow your Uzukage to make the decision to go or not to go rather than bicker like elderly men would do. Now we are going down there and we will rescue the daimyo. Prepare for combat. Naruto brushed past them as they bowed their heads in shame to his figure. Go! The seven disappeared in a flash and blurs could be seen leaping over rooftops, moving quickly to the palace where a desperate last stand took place. 000 Land of Spring Kazahana Manor Throne Room, hold them back. Sujihara of the Uzumaki yelled out, her blood-stained Anbu armor held strong as a snow ninja attempted to thrust his kunai into her chest. Her scimitar already stained with blood, she cut off the hand holding the kunai and followed up with a slice to the man's throat. He gurgled up blood before falling onto the ground, dead. She stepped back and took a look around to see what was left of the defenders. Upon the start of the attack, the palace had over 100 samurai and over 10 loyalist snow shinobi. Add Sujihara's squad to the mix and the defenders numbered at roughly 115 against the enemy's 200. She could only surmise that the focus of the attack was there in the capital while small towns were being subjugated with smaller groups. What was left was around a dozen bloodied and wounded samurai and only a few loyal snow ninja left. The rest of the Anbu's squad had been cut off outside and she knew not what happened to them but feared the worst. These snow shinobi aren't particularly difficult to defeat when they have no snow, Sujihara thought as she pierced through the chest of another with her blade, pulling it out with a huff of breath. But they have overwhelming numbers and a surprisingly strong determination to win. She risked a glance to the top of the throne to see Daimyo Kazahana surrounded by 3 of the strongest samurai under her command. She allowed herself a small smile underneath her mask that resembled a wildcat with purple cheek markings. Another group of snow shinobi burst through a separate entrance from the one that had so far been used, leading to a few samurai being killed in surprise. She readied herself when an explosion rocked the wall opposite the throne room and revealed a large group of snow shinobi and a gust of cold wind from the outside reaching her body. The cold made her feel goosebumps sprout, but the snow that now spread onto the floor sent chills down her spine. Oh no, they can use their ice release now. Fall back. Get back to the throne now. The few remaining soldiers under her command quickly broke into a run to stand near Koyuki as Sujihara and the snow shinobi went through hand signs simultaneously. Lava release, lava wall. Ice release, swallow snow storm. The quickly formed lava wall encircled the high pedestal and formed around Sujihara's body to protect the defenders. The ice projectiles hit the hot lava head-on and immediately melted, showing which advanced element had the advantage. The Anbu captain wished she could smirk but could only cringe in pain as her injuries began to catch up with her and the chakra within her faded away in. Sustaining the wall. Keep up the jutsu. That Yuzu shinobi can't keep up the wall for much longer, look how it crumbles. Yelled one of the snow ninja, eliciting a cheer from his brothers as the wall became smaller and smaller. Sujihara's vision blurred as her reserves left her and forced the wall to crumble, leaving nothing between her and the snow shinobi. She collapsed onto the first step of the throne seat and leaned against the solid surface, holding her scimitar with one hand and staunching the blood of her leg wound with the other. They readied another attack on the loyalists, one that was meant to annihilate those remaining. A sad smile crossed her face as she thought of her family back home and of her Uzumaki. She had failed him, both in staying alive herself and keeping the daimyo alive until he arrived. I'm sorry Uzumaki-sama, the redhead contented herself with the odd satisfaction of watching the snow needles launch toward her body in a hail of death. The samurai above her stood in a sacrificial line to protect the daimyo with one last shield, their own bodies. Koyuki cried out in horror as the attack was launched, pleading with the ninja to stop the madness they had caused. Suddenly, a figure appeared in front of Sujihara's prone figure. She saw it was a tall man with a two-sided greatsword. The mask jolted her senses back to normal when she recognized the telltale sign of an Yuzu hurricane. He quickly lifted up his mask and without hand signs launched a river of lava into the oncoming projectiles, effectively melting them all. Her eyes widened at the man's ability. Wait, only a few select Uzumaki have the discipline required to use the bloodline without hand signs. The matriarch, Mei-sama, and her husband the Uzumaki, Naruto-sama. The only others could be the Uzumaki hurricanes. I don't remember one ever having such a large sword as a weapon though. Her questions were soon answered when the figure turned towards her with his mask off, revealing the Uzumaki himself. Despite her position, a proud smile crossed her face to see her leader with such a timely arrival. He quickly saw her bleeding leg wound and turned back towards the hole in the roof. This ANBU needs medical assistance, Ranmaru, get down here. Two hurricanes appeared at either side of and quickly began to heal her wounds with practiced hands. Uzukage-sama, what are you doing here? Her raspy voice escaped from the dry throat, unable to lift above a whisper. We are here to save you all, of course. He smirked before looking back at the army of ice shinobi before him who had been stunned into inaction. Hurricanes. Combination C. A chorus of "understood" or "yes sir" originated from the roof where he had come from, and she soon saw the remaining of the elite bodyguard jump through the hole into action. Without the use of hand signs, both Hyo clansmen gathered ice chakra into a needle shape within the webs of their fingers. Soon, 5 ice needles had formed between all 10 of their fingers, and they began to launch a barrage of projectiles into the snow shinobi formation. They quickly scattered to find cover but soon found themselves walking on lava as the Uzumaki yelled out their technique. Lava release, bed of lava. While many attempted to flee, most felt their best chance to kill the daimyo was staring them in the face, and they continued towards the throne pedestal. Naruto had planned for this and stood alongside his hurricanes in a defensive ring around the structure. He readied his great sword in front of him and yelled out a challenge to the attacking shinobi. You will take no step farther. Uzumaki proclaims the land of spring under its protection, and you will not be taking daimyo Kazahana as long as we stand here. The snow shinobi flinched but remained undeterred in their attack. A few went through hand signs. Ice release, swallow snow storm. Naruto deflected the projectiles with his large sword, with some breaking on impact while others were absorbed by the containment seals. He charged forward and sliced through the stomach of one man, twirling the sword to deflect another one's kunai. The Hyo remained back and continued to use their needles to attack, while the Uzumaki threw off their cloaks and revealed their primary weapons, scimitars. For the Uzumaki, they yelled out a battle cry and joined the Uzukage in the fray, clashing metal against ice with the rebels. Koyuki watched in wonder as the brave hurricanes fought against the people she once thought loyal to her. Their leader, the one with the large sword, interested her most of all. She had been unable to see his face but could feel his confidence and pride ooze off of him as he spoke. The hearts of his men swooned with fiery determination while the tails of his enemies fell between their legs in terror. I wonder who he is, if Naruto sent him. Then I must trust him. I sort of wish he had come in person though. Naruto cut through another snow ninja's stomach when he began to notice them retreat. The hurricanes gathered around him and waited for further orders as the enemy combatants left them alone in the castle. The battlefield was littered with the dead or dying. Some bodies were melting away from the lava still on the ground. Sir? Naruto turned around without saying anything and headed towards Koyuki. The samurai who remained formed up around her and readied their swords for battle. They had no idea who these shinobi were and were not going to take any chances. Stand down. The samurai looked back at Koyuki, who stood up in her royal kimono and pressed past them. She was still unable to see Naruto's face clearly because his cloak's hood was still on. He was just a random warrior to her before she stood before him and bowed low. Thank you for helping us, without you we would be dead. On behalf of my nation, I welcome you to spring. Please warrior, tell me your name. Naruto looked to see that Sugihara was up, leaning on the Ranmaru as they joined his entourage. He looked back at Koyuki, who was now looking up at him expectantly. He did not want to disappoint. His sword was quickly placed onto his back and his gloved hands moved to his cloak's hood. My name, he started to slowly remove the cloak, not taking his eyes off of Koyuki's. Is Naruto Uzumaki. The Shodai Uzukage. Her eyes widened as the hood came off and the mess of blonde hair she remembered was once again in front of her. And Naruto, is that really you? Naruto smiled at the surprised woman. He was glad to see he was missed. He knelt down and slowly lowered her back up to where she was standing in front of him. The shock had still not left her face when Naruto released her hands and let her stand on her own. Yep, it's me, Haim. Or should I say, Daimyo. Suddenly, Naruto was assaulted by her as she clung to his hulking frame and buried herself in his chest. Naruto lost his smile and brought his arms tight around her. The others watched the reaction with surprise. "And Naruto, it tried my best booty, just couldn't do it." Her sobs racked her entire body, leading Naruto to almost completely envelope her in his cloak. "It's alright, Koyuki, we are going to stop this rebellion. I saved you once, I can do it again." His encouraging words gave Koyuki hope. They also made a warm feeling bubble in her gut. "He cares for me so much and he has gotten quite handsome." Naruto saw her eyes glaze over as she looked at him. A hesitant smile crawled over his face. He did not want to offend her by rejecting her advances. She was quite a beautiful and confident woman after all. But Naruto was happily married and he had a child. There was no way he would betray Mei. Koyuki moved up to give him a kiss on the lips. She would say it was for rescuing her and he couldn't refuse it. After Naruto stopped the rebellion, then she would lead him to her bed chambers and they would have some fun. This plan that she created was flawed though, as it showed when Naruto moved his face to receive the kiss on the cheek instead. The others were either surprised or relieved, depending on their knowledge of Naruto's marriage. To the samurai, it was a direct insult to the beauty of their nation. To the hurricanes, it was relief for the Uzumaki that he wouldn't have to deal with Mei's temper. "Naruto? What's the matter?" Koyuki asked, not understanding why he didn't want a kiss. Naruto gently lifted her up again and held her gloved hands tentatively as he explained. "I'm sorry, Koyuki, but I am married and have a child. You are a very beautiful woman, but I hope you can understand why I don't want to cheat me, Koyuki." Naruto stopped when he noticed that Koyuki failed to lose her surprised visage and he instantly grew concerned for her. "Am I married?" Naruto tried to ease her shock and began to give her a quick explanation of his life for the past 5 years. Sugihara chuckled a bit at the scene but remembered that she had to find her teammates. She gently shook off the 2 hurricanes holding her steady and walked out into the frigid cold. Her teammates had last been seen holding the gates against the snow shinobi. The least she could do was gather their bodies for a proper burial. It was the least they deserved. The gate and walls surrounding the small castle were completely covered in ice. Some pieces had broken off and left the defensive measure useless. Upon reaching the gate, her eyes widened at the sight of finding no bodies whatsoever, snow or otherwise. "But we killed so many, dozens should be laying here. The snow isn't heavy enough to cover them all. Where did they go?" A frosty wind hit her again, causing her arms to instinctively move to her chest for warmth. The woman's teeth chattered and she felt so weak for showing such sensitivity to the cold. Her outfit, like most other people living in spring for the past few months and years, had been adapted to suit the warmer climate. Now that the land was without sun nor heat, the cold snow was free to move back into the fragile nation and left everyone unprepared. Her ANBU uniform was not enough to keep her warm and she had left her cloak within her bed chambers in the castle. She continued to wander the grounds, frantically searching for her fallen comrades. Behind her mask, her nose turned red and she sniffed from what could only be a cold. The Uzumaki would not like to see her like this. He was always so caring for his shinobi and people that he hated to see them in anything other than top condition. He would understand though. I have to find them. Wait. What is that? The redhead had spotted outlines on top of a nearby building shaped like people. It looked as though they were hovering slightly off the ground though. The blizzard would not allow her to have a clear view. "Ukami. Inu. Tora. Is that you?" The figures did not move, but merely swayed with the changing winds. Their odd movement concerned her and she moved closer to investigate. It was only a few moments later before she stood in front of the figures. Moving closer, she was able to clearly make out their ANBU uniforms, ripped and bloody from the intense fighting. When she was able to see their heads, that was when she knew their fate. Her scream echoed throughout the town. Naruto was in the middle of detailing the marriage when he heard the scream. He looked around to see Sugihara gone and feared the worst had happened. "Ranmaru, find the ANBU captain." The two bloodline users quickly focused their chakra and searched the blizzard for her location. I found her, sir. Follow me. The group of hurricanes moved quickly and arrived at her location to find her on her knees, blankly staring at the dead bodies of her teammates. Naruto looked at them himself, a scowl of disgust graced his features. In their haste to retreat, the snow shinobi either took their dead bodies and hung them by their necks or they had been captured and hung. Either way, they were dead and it made Naruto very angry. He looked down at his ANBU captain and frowned. She was just barely holding herself together before she would enter shock. He waved a hand towards the three bodies and his hurricanes quickly set to work untying them and placing them within scrolls to be buried back in Yuzu. Naruto meanwhile went over to the ANBU captain and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. Her head barely moved to acknowledge its presence. Naruto sighed and moved his face close to her ear, rubbing her shoulder a bit to try and warm her up. I'm sorry Sugihara, what happened to your teammates wasn't right. I will make sure those who did it will pay, but you have got to say something. You have to be strong. Her neck moved a bit, it was no doubt her trying to do something to break the awkwardness. Yuzukage-sama, I'm sorry. Sugihara began to fall forward but Naruto was able to quickly catch her and lift her small body in his arms. He brought her up and carried her slowly back to the castle. His Yuzu hurricanes followed in silence for it was time for morning. No one noticed the tears that fell from Naruto's cheeks on his way back, nor did anyone catch his whispered statement of apology. No, I'm sorry. 000 Konohagakure Hokage office Tsunade watched as the final member of the recovery squad walked in. She had ordered a meeting to be prepared as soon as her ANBU spotters reported that they had found the three tails within wave. Kakashi and Shizun would lead two squads to go and contain the beast to keep it from falling into Akatsuki's hands. You have all been gathered here for an important mission. For Konoha to solidify its place within the Four-Village Alliance, we must contribute to the cause. That Kose's defeating Akatsuki. The members of the newly made squad listened as she continued her speech. Your objective is to capture the three-tailed turtle within Wave Country. You must complete this objective with haste because we do not know whether anyone else knows of its location. Time is of the essence, now move out. I expect nothing but success. The squad leaped out of sight and Tsunade sat back into her chair, contemplating the events. My spies also told me that Yuzu had a presence on the island. I wonder how strong they have become, and just how much they are willing to interfere with our business. 000 Wave Country Tazuna Lake. The lake was peaceful, quite contrary to the beast that lay sleeping beneath its depths. Birds chirped and monkeys squealed as the day came to its height. A deep mist began to cover the ground and lake with a thickness and foreboding to it. A few birds' nests were disturbed when figures began to hop through the branches. There were 8 in all, masked men moving under the cover of shade. Scrolls, linked together with chains and covering their bodies, all had some purpose to the squad's mission. The small katana on their back served as their defensive weapon, however, with stealth they hoped to quickly finish their objectives without fighting. Sir, there is a chakra mist ahead. Seems to be some sort of illusion-causing type. Orders? The leader, the one with the large scroll hanging from his back, reached for the transceiver beneath his mask. Prepare for dissolution of mist, standard containment procedure. Squad B, begin setting up for the Three Tails containment, no mistakes. Roger. The 8 tamers burst from the tree line and made a dash across the water. 4 split off, encircling the large lake and setting up in a rough square. The other 4, including the leader, dashed forward to the center of the thickest mist. One of the men there pulled out what seemed to be a random scroll from his person and set it onto the murky surface. Hitsuji, I, Ushi, you. The man whispered the names of the hand signs within his mind as he did them, finishing the containment by slamming his foot onto the center seal on the scroll. The scroll created a small, swirling hole that began to suck in the white mist. The tamers kept a careful eye on the scroll as the mist was taken in and disappeared. Containment successful, whispered the leader as the hole dissipated and was followed by the kanji 4, containment, to appear within the center seal circle. Good job, now we awaken the beast. Step 1, attract. He said to his men, who began to run to opposite sides of the lake, and he did the same. The incantations and seals were very precise with the beast control. If just one seal is off, then the hundreds that were made before were useless. Without having any other tailed beast to test their abilities, the men and the beast tamers were all green. It led them to say aloud and count each seal they created during the process. The men stopped at each one of the corners nearby where Squad B was setting up their scrolls on the ground. The leader's squad went through a number of hand signs next for another jutsu used to rouse beasts. Tori, Inu, Tori, Mi, Yu, Tori, Tatsu, Inu, Mi, Tora, Hitsuji. Secret art, tailed beast echo. The 4 slammed their hands onto the water surface and a deep howl was sent into the water. The 4 men who made up Squad B had quickly finished their setup by this time. They had taken out their own containment scrolls and set them in front of themselves. The 4 sat down and crossed their legs, balancing themselves on the water and giving them better concentration. Here it comes, yelled out the leader as the bubbles at the center of the lake intensified until the turtle itself climbed out. It seemed very angry to have been awoken so suddenly. It would be even more angry upon finding out what the tamers had planned for it. Go. Step 2, grapple and bind. The 4 who had used the echo then leaped into action and moved to one side of the beast. The 4 quickly launched multiple chakra strings from their fingers and desperately attempted to hold the beast down. At first, the 3 tails thrashed against their holdings and broke free numerous times. It was always taken back under control though by the tamers. Squad B had their scrolls set up and began to focus their own chakra strings. These strings connected to the scrolls in front of them and made their way to attach onto the 3 tails. With these strings attached, it led to the third and final step of beast absorption. Step 3, chakra transfusion. The leader thought as he watched the other squad go through the incantations. Hitsuji, Saru, Saru, Tori, Inu, Tatsu, Ushi, Tora, Mi, Yu, Uma, Yu, Ushi, Tatsu, Uma, Hitsuji, Ushi, Tatsu, Inu, Tori, Inu, Mi, Saru, Mi, Hitsuji, Uma, Tora, I, Tori. The men listed off each hand sign as they made them, the cycle continuing into the hundreds of hand seals until its completion. The holders could begin to feel the sanbai weaken throughout the ceremony, slowly losing its chakra. As it was made of pure chakra, it began to shrink in size as the jutsu went on. Within a few hours, the entire 3 tails was no larger than a lily pad on the water. To think, the 3 tails took 6 hours. With the amount of chakra within the 9 tails, how many would it take for Kyubi? Days, weeks? The leader thought to himself as the chakra feelers began to dissipate and Squad B finished their long jutsu. With their voices hoarse from speaking, the men relied only on their minds to complete the last verse of hand signs. Hitsuji, Saru, Saru, Tori, Inu, Hatsuji. Secret art, tailed beast chakra transfusion. All 4 scrolls lit up with a neon green and the kanji 4, contained, appeared on each, signifying the capture had been successful. However, such demonic chakra could only be contained in such small sealing scrolls for so long before it broke out again. To this end, they had to move the chakra to something larger and more permanent. The squads united on the shore and Akaru, the leader of the sealing squad, took off the large scroll that had hung useless from his back. He laid it down onto the ground and unfurled it, revealing dozens of small seals and writing surrounding one large, empty circle in the middle. Above, below, and to the sides of the circles lay 4 small rectangles, the place for them to set the chakra-containing scrolls. The men laid the containers down carefully and watched as Akaru completed the final point to the operation, permanently containing sanbai. He moved to sit in the middle circle and placed his hands in the standard ram hand sign to focus his chakra. His men assumed similar positions around the scroll. This is the most dangerous part. If I fail here, then not only will I be torn apart by the demon chakra, but my men will as well. It is the only way for us to complete the technique by being connected. Step 4, he gulped. His men looked to each other anxiously and with much trepidation. Akaru continued. Final containment. Upon this, Akaru launched into a flurry of hand signs that his men followed. Their chant filled the evening air and overwhelmed the peaceful chirps of crickets. Hitsuji, Inu, Tori, Saru, N, Saru, Hitsuji, Tori, I, Tori, Mi, N, Yu, Ushi, Tatsu, Uma, N, Saru, Tori, Ushi, Tora. The scrolls began to light up in the familiar neon green and chakra strings sprouted from Akaru's body to each. The man was suddenly assaulted by the intense emotions of rage and hatred. Countless memories flooded through him as the three tails attempted to take over his mind and body. The thoughts were of the past when the three tails attacked and destroyed countless vessels and villages upon a whim. It was showing Akaru its past in a hope to show him the power he could have if he would just allow the chakra to flow throughout him. The stalwart ANBU captain refused to give in, instead allowing the operation to continue as planned. To move the chakra from the 4 small scrolls to the large scroll, the squad was forced to have a medium between the two as the transfer happened. Of course, as leader, Akaru was the one to do the job. However, it would be impossible for his body alone to handle the full amount of the three tails' power. To this end, his men would extend chakra feelers and slowly take in portions of the three-tailed chakra from their leader as he took the vast majority. Through the combined strength of the squad, the three tails would falter. Akin to the Kyubi, it would require dozens of mediums to handle the large amount of chakra beset on them by the tailed beast. Hold together. Akaru grunted in exerted encouragement. He slowly began to transfer what chakra he could handle into the larger scroll. It began to flash green as it slowly received the volatile chakra from the beast tamer. Although their bodies were strong, alone the tamers would not be able to hold the chakra and it would inevitably consume them. To this end, a special seal had been placed on each of their masks, courtesy of the Uzumaki to help contain the beast. In exchange for temporarily holding the majority of the chakra for the tamer, the mask would actually change shape. From its blank slate, the mask would morph into the shape of the animal of the tailed beast they sealed. Why must this take so long? We are defenseless at this point, hopefully no one else is in these woods. 000 Lightning Country Valley of Lightning and Thunder. Man, what this motherfucker think he was gonna do? Take me down. Yeah right. B announced with much vigor, standing over the dismembered body of Kisame Hoshigaki. After a long and drawn-out battle, B and his fellow Cloud Nin had defeated the Akatsuki giant. After his sword's defection to B's side, Kisame had quickly been pierced by over a dozen swords and his legs and arms completely chopped off by some careful Cloud Jonin. Feeling as though he might as well, B himself lead the group back to Kumo. He would tell his brother of yet another victory to go to be over the dreaded Akatsuki. As a token of victory, B took Samahata as his own personal weapon after the loss of his remaining swords. If he could see the head of Kisame's body, now submerged deep within a lake, he could see the bloody smirk that remained on the human shark's lips. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to like and subscribe, and don't forget to share this video with your friends. If you want early updates, check out Patreon. This is Fox Sage and I'm signing off.